Look who's here with us. We're so happy to have on the show New York Post columnist and author of the new book, Laptop from Hell. She's a terrific writer and must read. Miranda DeVine is here. Miranda, it's good to see you. So here's the debate. Should Hunter Biden pay back U.S. taxpayers for his trips on government airplanes to do overseas business deals while his father is vice president? Judicial Watch found in FOIA government documents nearly 24 trips out of Joint Base Andrews home. That's home to Air Force Two, rather. What do you think?
Yeah, thanks, Liz. Look, I think it's really sort of closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. I mean, it's a nice idea, but why was it ever allowed back when Joe Biden was vice president? There were reporters on Air Force Two with Joe Biden when he took Hunter Biden to Beijing with him in 2013, where he did that lucrative deal and where he got his father to come and shake hands with his new business partner. It seems moot now. Of course, Joe Biden behaved improperly by allowing Hunter Biden to conduct business using Air Force Two as his not just a means of transport, but also a signal to foreign dignitaries that he was Joe Biden's son, and here was American power come to do private business, because that's the way business is done, that bribes are paid in many countries overseas like China and Russia. They're not paid to the important official, they're paid to their offspring, to their sons and their daughters or relatives. And there's a name for it in China. They're called the princelings. And that's what Hunter Biden was, a princeling. And, you know, there were other occasions where Hunter Biden even shamelessly brought along his own business partners on one occasion in 2016 to fly with Joe Biden on an official visit to Mexico City. He brought along Jeff Cooper, who was a Biden family donor, Joe Biden donor, but also had given a lot of money to Hunter Biden. So there's a mixing of official American business of state with the Biden family's private enrichment scheme. And we can't lose sight of the fact that this is not about Hunter Biden. It is about Joe Biden, because Hunter Biden had been deputized and groomed by his father to be his bag man, to collect the money from peddling the influence that Joe Biden wielded around the world when he was vice president.
And you make an important point, because it is in violation of government ethics laws what Joe Biden allowed. And it's striking that the White House has never denied the stories about Hunter Biden and the laptop emails. You know, do you know of any time in U.S. history where the first family or the second family has had this kind of a financial dealings or bond with foreign intelligence services who are backing these state-owned companies? I mean, the issue is, the context is, Miranda, Biden was in debt in 2009. He owed $465,000. He had a negative net worth of $52,000. And then you have Hunter Biden texting one of his daughters that he was complaining he has to pay half of the cash he gets to, quote, pop. And that's part of a Chinese deal. The package would include 10% held by H for the big guy. You know what I mean? So that's the context. What do you think, Miranda?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's frightening, particularly considering that we're now in these situations with Russia via Ukraine, and also China is a very aggressive adversary. And we have a president who is compromised. I mean, he's compromised, we know, anyone who knows what's in the laptop, and the White House must know, and of course our adversaries know around the world. I mean, it's a joke that Joe Biden was running around the world preaching to other countries like Ukraine about corruption when his son was collecting millions, tens of millions of dollars on behalf of his father and the rest of the family. So I think I can't imagine that, how can America hold its head up on the international stage when it comes to corruption when you've got a president like that?
Miranda DeVine, you're terrific. I'm a big fan of your work. Come back soon, okay? It's good to see you.
Thanks, Liz.
Laptop from Hell is a book by Miranda DeVine. Take a look at it. And Miranda's columns in the New York Post.